Hi guys, Q264 here, and today we're going to talk about Season 8, Episode 6. This is the series finale of Game of Thrones, and man, do I have some stuff to say about this. Disclaimer, if you liked the way the final season of Game of Thrones went, I do not want to take away your fun. I do not want to take anything away from your enjoyment, so please just stop watching this. Just stop watching this video, because I don't have a whole lot of positives to say about the final episode or the final season in general. So please just go watch another video. I really don't want to take away your fun. That is your disclaimer. So I apologize for the long span between my last video and this video. I was actually at MegaCon in Orlando, and I wanted to enjoy myself. So I tried not to think about Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones has been a big disappointment in this final season. So how did the finale work out? What did I think about the finale? My bar lowered so much throughout this final season that it was so low that somehow the final episode was slightly better than my supremely low expectations for the final episode. Does that mean the final episode is good? Hell no, it's not good. It is terrible. Just in comparison to what I thought it might be, it was a little bit better than what I thought it might be. All right, let's go ahead and break this down real quick. Okay, let's start with what I actually did like about this episode. Drogon taking out the Iron Throne, just straight up melting it. I actually really like that. It showed that Drogon was an actual sentient, intelligent creature, which has not quite accurately been shown in the series. You kind of got the idea of it. Tyrion talked about it with Varys about how dragons are actually intelligent, and I like that he understood that Jon, while Jon did kill his mother, it wasn't Jon that really killed her. It was her lust for that stupid throne and her lust for power. So Drogon was just like, you know what? Screw this thing. I'm burning it. It's done. No one's sitting on this damn thing. I'm going to take my mom and I'm going to fly off to wherever you're going to fly off to. So I like that there's no more Iron Throne. That part I actually liked. Some of the character endings were fine. Some of them were pretty good. Honestly, majority of the character endings that actually are the people who survived were actually pretty happy endings, which I was kind of surprised about. Arya goes off to be Christopher Columbus. Tyrion's forced to be the Hand of the King again. Sansa's Queen of the North, which I pretty much guessed that was going to happen. Bronn gets his castle in Highgarden, and Sam is somehow, a maester now and is on the council. It's like, okay, whatever. Pod is, I guess, part of the Kingsguard now, which seems like a big waste of his skills considering what he does in the brothels. But, I mean, the whole thing of how stuff works out is different. So, hell, maybe maybe the Kingsguard doesn't work the same way. Who really knows? Brienne writing Jaime's story in the book. I love that, actually. That was actually pretty solid. I like that Jaime actually had a good ending via Brienne's writing in the book. I like that. So where some of the characters ended up, I actually did like. The main problem is overall this episode is just so anticlimactic. It's boring. It drones on. The whole episode is basically an epilogue. It's whatever. Anyway, the other stuff I liked, Tyrion. Tyrion finds Jaime and Cersei in the rubble. It seems kind of convenient that they're on the high end of the rubble and he's able to dig them out. But Peter Dinklage once again provides an amazing performance right here, and also most of the great parts in this episode were performed by either CGI creatures or Peter Dinklage. Peter Dinklage, just straight up taking, hey, I'm done. I'm not the Hand of the Queen anymore. You were insane. I'm taking this thing, throwing it down the stairs. That stuff I liked. The part where all the lords and whatever come together and Edmure Tully shows up and Robin shows up and all these characters I weren't sure were going to show up. They did. And then Mir totally gets up. And Sansa's like, sit your ass down. Nobody wants to hear from you. It was such a comedic moment. There's so many comedic moments in this final episode. Like, it comes back to the whole problem with this final season, which is just shifting tones and the breaking of immersion. The breaking of immersion happens by how in the rush for the writers to try and get these characters to an end point that they want to get them to, it destroys who the characters are. And that's the real problem with this final season. What else did I like? Ghost getting petted. Ghost not getting shafted. That was kind of nice there at the end. As always, the music is amazing. The score is amazing. It is way outpaces the terrible writing in this final season. Just terrible. The cinematography is again great. The way that it's shot is good. Like the way that it is shot, it feels epic. It feels way more epic than the terrible story that's being told to us. And of course, the acting is also great. I feel really bad for the filmmakers, the crew, the actors, the actresses. Like, they totally got shafted by just terrible writing. Emilia Clarke, she tries her best to deliver on this nonsensical writing of her just instantly becoming some tyrannical, dictator or whatever the hell, just a mad queen. When somebody says the mad queen, I'm just totally irritated, because while I would like that idea, even though I'm a huge Daenerys fan, I actually got some art at MegaCon with Daenerys. You know what? Wait a second. I'm going to go grab that and show it to you guys. So this is the awesome art of Artgerm. I'm a huge comic book collector, and I love Artgerm. He's a great artist, and he did this. I met him at MegaCon, and I got this art. You know why? Because I'm still a huge Game of Thrones fan. This terrible final season does not ruin my enjoyment of the previous seasons of Game of Thrones. And you know why? Because I just pretend like this final season doesn't exist. It actually was pretty easy, and it made me feel a lot better watching the last couple episodes, because I realized that I could just pretend they don't exist, and just make up whatever ending I want. And that's the best way to feel about Game of Thrones if you're a huge Game of Thrones fan. You don't have to treat this season like it exists. You really don't. But I am a huge Game of Thrones fan. The Daenerys I know throughout this show would not do the crap that they tried to force her to do. And that's really the whole issue with this final season, is if this final season was not the final season and we had a couple seasons to explore Daenerys' fall, explore Daenerys becoming the Mad Queen or whatever, I would totally buy it, and it'd be heartbreaking to see a character that we've rooted for become that person. But that's not what we got. We got this rush nonsense, and you know what? That's going to bring me to what is terrible about Game of Thrones. So let's get to it. Let's start off with the Unsullied and the Dothraki apparently putting more quarters in the arcade cabinet, because they don't straight up respond. There was more Unsullied and Dothraki in this episode than there were at the entire episode of the Battle of Winterfell. They just respawn. That's the only way I can explain it. I was totally, again, it comes back to what I said earlier. Breaking of immersion. That's the real problem with the final season, and it happened in episode 3 and continued on the decline until this final episode. Terrible. Where'd they even come from? They popped out of the ground like daisies, to quote Mushu. Bran being king, that's hit or miss, I guess, depending on what you thought. To me, the Iron Throne got destroyed, so while he is king, he's not really sitting on the Iron Throne. I mean, if you look at the people who are in the circle at this council meeting, there weren't many legit options to really consider. So Bran becoming king, honestly, out of the options that were available, there were Sansa or Bran maybe, and that's it. Sansa was totally stuck on the North thing, and it is what it is. You either buy it or you don't. I don't particularly care one way or the other. The fact that Bran's king makes kind of logical sense. I just wish that there was more of Bran in the character that we're seeing, because he's just like this emotionless robot. And I have a whole theory about Bran and Daenerys, and I will share that in a video. It's kind of going to be a comedic video, but I do look forward to sharing it with you guys. What else is wrong? The world of Westeros, and just the world in general of Game of Thrones just seems to shrink just drastically. Like everybody just ends up in certain places, and they're all teleporting places and fast travel, and that really, again, that goes back to breaking immersion. Let's talk about the two main important problems with the final episode, really with the final season in general, which is that Daenerys and Jon have both had their characters completely assassinated by the writers, D&D. Daenerys legit justifies murdering these innocents in this episode. I thought maybe, in the last episode she went insane and just murdered everybody. I didn't buy that for a second. Not for a second. I could totally understand her just flying to the Red Keep and taking it out, and a bunch of people, dying because of it as a byproduct. That I would totally buy. Daenerys strafing for 40 minutes and just murdering everybody. I don't buy it. And then she gives her Hitler speech, and then she's straight up trying to justify to Jon how, I'm helping these people. She would not just instantly become that delusional. I really actually, surprisingly, I don't know why, I actually expected the writers to have some kind of reasoning behind what she was doing. Bad on me, I guess, for being an idiot and still having even a slightest bit of hope that the writers knew what the hell they were doing with Daenerys. Nope, she's just insane. She's insane. She thinks that she knows best and everybody else doesn't get a vote. That's the whole thing. And then Jon, his whole discussion with Tyrion is so stupid. Tyrion brings up the things that Dany did, but he kind of brings it up as like, hey, well, she did this, this, and this, and she killed the Masters and she did all this stuff. And it's almost like all the people who are trying to defend this final season and Daenerys going Mad Queen. I could buy her going Mad Queen as long as you built up to it. The way that it's built up is she just snaps on a dime, because everything that she did, all the horrible stuff that she did, murdering people and everything else, all those people did specific things to deserve it. Nothing in the last episode, The Bells, justified her murdering all these innocent people and strafing for 45 minutes. All these innocent men, women, and children. Nothing in her character would justify that. And if she happened to do that, then she would instantly realize, that she did that out of anger. And there's just the whole way it's executed is just terrible. I really wish I could feel for Daenerys fall from grace and the way that we've rooted for her. But that's just not what we got. We should have had a couple seasons, full seasons. I'm talking about like 10 episode seasons like the earlier ones, where we explore her fall into this being this Mad Queen. But we don't get that. We just get her instantly turning into an android and killing everybody like a mad robot, and then Jon killing her. It's so stupid. And then Jon ends up at the wall. Seriously, he's back where he was at the beginning of season 1. This entire final season has been about character regression, and it's been so frustrating. Everybody has to end up back at square one. Whoever they were in season 1, we're going to take them back to there. I was kind of happy because Jon always liked North. He liked being with the Wildlings. He didn't like all the political crap. And he ended up with Ghost and going north of the Wall. So in some ways, he ended up kind of probably where he wanted to be. But it all negates the whole buildup for Aegon Targaryen. Aegon Targaryen didn't matter at all. Nothing Nothing in this whole, everybody talks about the foreshadowing for Dany. Well, you know, there was foreshadowing for Jon too. There was foreshadowing for Jon and Aegon Targaryen. They used it as the season cap for the last couple seasons, as it is a big deal. It amounted to nothing. It didn't even matter. Varys writing all the notes to send out to all lords that he was Aegon Targaryen. That didn't matter. Varys died for nothing. The whole idea of Aegon Targaryen was just a complete waste. I don't even, it's all about that subverting expectations. Why did Jon not end up being the actual king at the end? Why? There's no real reason. He has the most rightful heir to the throne. And if their whole idea was to implement a democratic system, which was what Sam suggested, while Bran may make logical sense, Jon just getting completely shafted and throwing away the whole Aegon Targaryen lineage, and it just made that whole buildup for nothing, which is what this final season has been. It's been about taking all the stuff that they alluded to and built up to and just throwing it in the dumpster to give you something that's shocking. There was this thing that I watched a video not too long ago, and it was about this guy talking about if you're writing a book, a mystery book, and the butler's the one who did it, but people online figure out that the butler is the one who did it while you're writing your book, you don't just change your whole book to tell that the butler didn't do it, because that ruins your entire book. You have to rewrite your book. You have to rewrite, all the clues in there and everything else, and it completely ruins the story you're telling. So the end result is that you should not change your story just because people figure it out, or just because because the clues that you hint in there allow people to understand the ending. That just to subvert expectations, is that really the only reason? That's a stupid reason to just change your whole story. Now, I don't know specifically if that's what D&D are doing, or if this is what the notes that George R.R. Martin provided. Either way, the execution of those ideas is just complete trash. And I think the majority of the fans kind of agree with this. More than 50% agree with this. And it's just completely terrible. The decisions with these characters is just a very small part of the real issue. The real issue is the delivery of those ideas. For instance, Jon and Dany, it's kind of foreshadowed in last season that Dany may have kids with Jon, and that the whole idea of the witch telling her that she can't have kids might be a lie. That's completely wasted. There's so many scenes that in retrospect are completely torn apart by the final season. Just because they just throw everything out the window just because they want to subvert whatever ideas you might have. And it's just completely insulting. And like I said at the beginning, the final episode is not as disappointing as I thought it'd be, because my bar has been lowered to such an extreme degree that I was not surprised by anything that actually happened. I just didn't care. I just pretend like it's not real. And that's the real problem with this final season. It breaks immersion, and it makes fans not really care. Once you accept that it doesn't really matter, you can kind of accept it as just it's fan fiction. It's just a different idea of what the ending is. And if you watch it up to season 7, again, I defend season 7. Season 7 had some of the problems that would arise here in the final season, but at least in season 7, the characters still acted like the characters. There was still forward character progression, whereas in season 8, it was just constant character regression, and the plot's just garbage. So the final season, major disappointment. The series finale, major disappointment. It's all terrible. It's all terrible. Again, I want to thank all my new subscribers. I want to thank everybody who's stuck with me through these Game of Thrones videos and who has been with me from before these Game of Thrones videos. These Game of Thrones videos have blown up my channel unlike anything I thought was going to happen. I've been doing videos for a few years. I just do them for fun. It never catches on to the YouTube analytics, but because the Game of Thrones has ended up being such a disappointment, and I guess because I caught it so early with episode 3, it somehow caught on to the YouTube analytics, and a lot of people found my videos because of that. And I want to thank everybody who is subscribing because of that. I want to thank everybody who might subscribe because of this video. I do want to do a couple more Game of Thrones videos. There's still some more stuff to discuss here, specifically how the characters have been utterly ruined, and kind of talk about the series as a whole. Because as I said, I'm still a Game of Thrones fan. This final season has not ruined that. However, it has ruined my interest in future Game of Thrones content. And that's a whole separate video. I really want to talk about the fan petition and some of the other stuff. There are some more Game of Thrones videos coming from me, but also I also want to do a review for John Wick 3. There's an in-game review that I really want to do. I did see in-game opening weekend, and the only reason why I've not done a video on it yet is because I really wanted to watch it a second time before I could give an honest review on it. And there's a live-action Aladdin movie coming out this weekend. It's probably not going to be very good. I'm a huge Aladdin fan, the original Aladdin. I don't know why Disney has to make these live action adaptations. We already have the animated movies. I don't know, whatever. Honestly, I just want to thank everybody for sticking around. There's more stuff that I want to talk about with Game of Thrones, as I said, because we really need to cope with the disappointment of this season, but we don't want to stick on it too long, because really what it amounts to is that at least the disappointment's over. The final episode is over. The disappointment is over. You know, while we can forget it to a certain degree, and in order to enjoy previous seasons, we will not forget what D&D did. And when they move on to Star Wars, which is a completely different topic, because I have done Star Wars videos in the past, and I do have an awesome Star Wars series coming up of videos. If any of this stuff interests you, I would really appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Of course, if you don't, that's okay too. I'm not a beggar. I'm Geek264, and I'll always tell you the truth.